I have been studying cross-cultural approaches to resolving conflict for almost 20 years. I'm passionate about this subject. Those who know me know I'm passionate about this subject. But I still, after all that time, get that awful, sick feeling in my stomach when someone's mad at me. Conflict indeed is messy and risky and scary and can be, as we all know, extremely dangerous. But after all that time, I've also come to understand that conflict is one of the best things we've got going for us. So, can you think of a time when your life has gotten better, when you have improved somehow without some degree of discord? It might be that you've got, a battle of ideas. Should I take the job? Should I not take the job? But if everything is going along the same, I know I don't change. We need conflict to push us forward. The tough needs to come so that the good can occur. It's as Euripides once said, there is in the worst of fortunes the best chance of a happy change. So I find this true in my own life. Thought you'd get a little snippet of me, but we first have to stop and look at, was I like the cutest darn thing at 9 years old? I wanted to be Gloria Steinem when I grow up, so that's the glasses, you got that. So, but this gives you just some of the moves, some of the things that propelled me forward, and you notice that all of these, there's a battle that ensued before I shifted, before I was courageous. Sometimes I was just fighting with myself, like not being ready to go to college at 17. Careful when you skip the grade, 8th grade, you end up young. And I was crying in my mother's lap at 17, which is not good, and I realized that I should probably instead go to Mexico on a foreign exchange program, which has brought me to this work. I probably wouldn't have started dating my husband if I hadn't have done that. So that's one example. Others are when I'm fighting with other people, like my parents when they moved me to Minneapolis. Again, a good thing over the long haul. And I had a whole set of contentious meetings in my late 20s, early 30s that drove me to get mediation training. And then sometimes we fight with life. And in my case, you see up there that a friend died way, way too young. And our loss of her pushed me to go to graduate school in something that I loved and also to start writing. So I've needed conflict. I need the battles to get this far anyway. So my job is to look at common tips and techniques that you can find around the world to deal with difficult circumstances. Another way to look at it is I look to see what a wise grandmother would tell me if I was in India, if I was in Panama, if I was in Italy, or in Thailand. That what am I told no matter where I go? The great news is that there is a wealth of tips and techniques that can be found that can help us overcome tough times. But today, as you know, watching the TED Talk, I have a conflict. I only have 10 minutes, so I get to tell you just one cross-cultural tip. I'm going to tell you what it is, why it works, and how to apply it. So you ready? Okay, here we go. The global tip is, when conflict comes, be grateful. I know, yeah, right. So when the guy cuts you off in traffic, give thanks. When the woman thinks that your ideas are absolutely ridiculous, be appreciative. And if you live in conflict or post-conflict zones, like so many of my students, even then we're counseled to count this as a blessing. As counterintuitive as that may sound, finding gratitude in conflict makes us safer and more apt to find resolution. The advice is clear. If we just start at the world's major religions, you'll find that in Christianity they say, give thanks regardless of the circumstances. In the Islamic and Jewish traditions, we're told to stop and give praise for whatever comes our way 3 to 5 times a day. And I appreciate in Hinduism, they give us a goal to shoot for. I appreciate that. Such people have mastered life. This is the idea that whatever comes along on our path is that it is good, that it is equal, and that it is part of this greater whole. So why is this a global tip? I think brain research is giving us some clues. So here's your brain. I'm going to tell you about this is your brain on conflict. So here we go. Your brain is actually like 3 or 4 brains all cobbled together. So you'll notice that you've got the limbic system in the middle, and these different pieces take turns driving. So the limbic system's one of its jobs is to look for threats, look for things that might hurt you. So it is paying attention. Is that a problem? Is that a threat? Is that a problem? And if it sees something, it is hardwired to give control to your reptilian brain. And you can see that that's that dark part down in the base, kind of like a reptile hiding. It acts like it too sometimes. But its job is, if there is an immediate physical threat, its work is to get you into fight flight, right? So it's to say, course adrenaline through your body and get you ready to either get the heck out of here or to neutralize your opponent. But the problem is, if it's not an immediate physical threat that you're dealing with, not such a good place to be in conflict. Now, you may have noticed on the previous chart, I'm a mother of 3. And so when I'm in my reptilian brain or in fight flight, this is the point where the screaming teenager is yelling at me and I'm screaming right back. And about 20 minutes later, I am desperately regretting what I've just said. It is the place of, most of the time, very poor parenting skills. I know no one else can relate to this. So what we want to be most of the time, if there's not an immediate physical threat, we actually want to be in our neocortex. And you can see that. That's that light and fluffy part up there, and your prefrontal lobes. They are amazing in that this part of our brain can think in past, present, and future, where the reptilian brain, only in the present, only cares about me. So this part of our brain, past, present, and future, it can handle complex problem solving. With teenagers, good plan, right? But this is the place where we want to be in conflict. And the wonderful thing is that latest brain research shows is that is where we have to process gratitude. We have to be in our neocortex to think about things we're thankful for. So when something bad is coming your way, this cross-cultural tip tells you to think of 5 things you're thankful for. And if you can do that, you have a fighting chance to get to your neocortex. And in my case as a mother is to maybe be quiet, to ask good questions, and see the bigger picture. So something I always try to remember when I'm thinking of my brain is that I'm not only fighting with another every time conflict comes, or fighting with life, I'm actually fighting with my brain. And if we can remember that and be kind to ourselves, that can be a step forward in conflict as well. So this cross-cultural tip goes one step further. It says not only to be grateful for conflict, but also to be grateful for your opponents. We see this in the Jewish proverb, listen to your enemy, for God is talking. We also see this in the opening bow of the Eastern martial artists as they step onto the mat. And they bow and say, thank you for this opportunity to fight. I recognize that you could hurt or destroy me. Teach me what I have to learn. This is the place, this is the magic place where our worst enemies have the potential of becoming our best teachers. The problem is we so often forget, right? We're hardwired to forget. And we turn our opponent sadly into things. The Jewish philosopher Martin Buber, after the Holocaust, talked about this terrible propensity of turning our opponents into things. We forget that they have value and that actually each of our opponents hold the missing information that we need in order to resolve the conflict. They are a thou as we see in that opening bow. Yet, the legacy is so long when we forget. When we turn our opponents into things, we run into situations that not only live with us, but live with those who follow us. So how many generations, for example, does it take for a family to overcome physical and sexual abuse? When do we, as a species, stop and recover from slavery, the Holocaust, other forms of genocide? And then there is the times when we take other species and we turn them into evil, awful things that we need to eliminate. And as we've heard and as we know, that legacy is long as well. We need to remember the thou. Because conflict is calling us to our best. I continue to be attracted to working with people in conflict, which seems kind of strange. But I get to see people shine. I get to see that, just as the Zen saying provides, is that an unencumbered stream has no song. Sure, I see people at their absolute worst. If you've seen me in conflict, you've sometimes seen me in my absolute worst. But I also get to see people sing. I get to hear from a young Bahraini woman who was a student of mine, how she held calm, how she held gratitude when the police came to take her away for questioning at 2:30 in the morning. Her family was screaming and crying, but she held calm. And she made it through unscathed. The charge, she had posted on Facebook that she wanted peace and justice in Bahrain. She is now safely in another country studying. I also get to see a man in his 70s who participated in a series of contentious conversations about homosexuality and its place in their church. And he said to me, Deidre, all my life, I have just never considered what it would feel like not to be welcome. He said, I never had put my feet into my gay parishioners' shoes. This conflict changed me. So conflict creates our heroes' tests. It creates those points, those life-defining moments in our lives where we, like the encumbered stream, can sing our proudest soul's anthem. Plato once said, I exhort you also to take part in the great conflict, which is the conflict of life. May we each meet each difficulty and each opponent with appreciation, and may we engage well. Life brings struggles. May we celebrate those struggles and shine. Thank you very much.